Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel where today we will be looking 5 years into the future with our West Ham team that we've just finished the series on in the Sir Alex Ferguson challenge. So let's get into year one and see how they've managed without us. So we'll start out with the Premier League performance for West Ham. They actually came third in this season after we left, only 2 points away from Tottenham Hotspur, who won the league this season. That would have been the third season in a row West Ham had won the Premier League if they'd managed to get there. A little disappointed, I'll not lie. In terms of the Champions League, they got to the first knockout round. They got through the quarterfinals. They got through the semis and they won the Champions League. So the back-to-back Champions League winners, making it look easy where I made it look incredibly difficult. Beating Liverpool 3-0 in the final with Fabio Silva getting 2 and Brent Beckier getting 1. And this is what happened in the transfer market the summer that we left. Jaramillo left to join Barcelona for £93 million. That's no big surprise. Jaramillo was very much a fourth choice striker with us, even though he looks absolutely fantastic once he's at another club. He looks unbelievable. So he's went to Barcelona. He's had a decent first season. £93 million is an incredible profit for West Ham. I think they paid £10.75 million for him a good few seasons ago now, and in the final season when I was in charge he didn't make that many appearances, so excellent money to be made there. Armin Jerlik followed him to Barcelona as well. As you'll know, we changed system towards the end of our reign at West Ham and attacking midfielders were no longer required, and Armin Jerlik was a casualty of that. He didn't really play that much for us, although he did score the crucial goal in one of the Champions League knockout rounds to get us through to the next round. So he left for £44 million. We bought him for £950,000 very early on in our career. Fantastic profit, decent player. It doesn't look like he's going to do much at Barca. Also leaving is Jonathan Panzo, an English centre-half. I'm a little bit surprised that he's left purely due to registration rules and things like that. We signed him a long time ago for £10 million, purely because he was English. He was a starter for a good couple of seasons and it sort of tailed off as his attributes didn't improve the way you would expect them to. Still fantastically well-rounded physically, but mentally and technically he's not the best. So no surprises there. Rankaria we never saw. Tim Richards, I've no idea who he is. A lot of loan players out, as you would expect with the amount of young players we had. And they signed some interesting players. Bill Pearce from Liverpool, a left winger. So it gives you the sort of sense of what sort of system they were playing once we left. £22 million for him. Darren Donaldson from Celtic, a right back. Why do you need a right back? You've got loads of right backs. But they signed him anyway. I don't know how did he make many appearances. 5 appearances over the course of a season for £22 million, of course. Reece Nelson for £43 million, an English right winger. Did he make any appearances? 9 appearances. What a waste of money. You got James Pure. Oh, it was in January, so you can understand the lack of appearances for Donaldson and Reece Nelson. And also you've got Robbie De Smet, who you might remember is I was chasing for a long time. £129 million for him, a centre-half. Very talented, of course. Played a lot of games for the side. I don't think he was necessary. With Copra and Eric Aubrey, Markovic, Luis Felipe, all them sort of centre-halves, he wasn't really incredibly necessary. I'm going to actually quickly check, see what sort of system they played in the Champions League final. Are they playing 3 at the back again still? I don't think they are. I think they're playing 4 at the back, which makes Robbie De Smet's signing even more mind-boggling. Are they not playing Eric Aubrey? As that must be what it is. Eric Aubrey, how many appearances? He only got 14 appearances last season, Eric Aubrey. So I can see him moving on sometime in the future. But that's enough for season 1. Come third in the Premier League. Won the Champions League. No real surprises in terms of outgoings yet. We'll see what's like in the second year. So moving on to the second season with West Ham since we left the club. They finished second in this season in the Premier League, joint on points with Manchester United, who finished top. I think they only lost out on goal difference, which was absolutely a shame for West Ham. And in terms of the Champions League, where did they come? They got passed through the first knockout round, past the quarters, past the semis, then got beat in the Champions League final by PSG in extra time. They actually took the lead through Fabio Silva in the 20th minute, but Jonathan Faber, whoever he is, got himself sent off. Actually, he's one of our goalkeepers I think I signed. Why is he playing and not Craig Davies? Craig Davies must have been injured. That's the only possible explanation. Please don't have sold Craig Davies. Let's go check the transfers. So it doesn't look like they've sold Craig Davies. He must have been injured. But in terms of players they have sold, Kevin Restrepo, who you'll never have seen for me, I don't think I ever played him, sold for £43 million. He was a talented centre-half who spent a lot of time out on loan. Now he's moved to Torino. Hopefully he has a decent career. Reece Oxford left as well. Went for £26 million to Newcastle. It's a little bit of a shame, this one. Obviously a West Ham graduate. It's always a shame to see them leave. Been with us since the very start. He's been a solid player. Played a lot of games for me when I came in, at least initially, at the very least. Started to drift off towards the end of my spell at the club, but he was still fantastic. Luis Felipe left the club for £21.5 million. He was a great signing, actually, I think. We signed him for about £30 million from PSG, and he really helped solidify that defence, what we're having major problems with when we were playing Reece Oxford and Jonathan Panzo. I think that little bit of experience was what we were lacking in the defence, and he came in and provided that handily. Next up was Joshua Wagnerman, left for £13 million, one of our first signings of the series, and he's left to go to Watford. A little bit of a shame what happened to him as well. Of course, he started a lot of games for us going forward. He struggled with injuries towards the end of his time when I was at the club, and he didn't really progress to the sort of levels that I expected. So he's left to go to Watford. Lewis Newton, you never saw him from me. He was a decent English prospect, and he's left to go to Burnley. Craig Healy, not even worth talking about. And they've let Igor Villalibre leave on a free transfer. He's now signed for AC Milan. He's worth £51 million. This is what I don't get about the AI. Get this guy tied down and then sell him. You know, loan him out. Do something with him. Don't just let him leave on a free transfer. But he has. He's went into Milan, AC Milan. And the sole incoming from is Lucas from PSG for £56 million. I don't recognise his name. He's a defensive midfielder / centre midfielder he's good. Don't get me wrong. He looks really good. He's now on loan at Borussia Dortmund. Why did you sign him again? He played 11 times in the Premier League for West Ham before going to Borussia Dortmund. Oh, he might. I know what it is. I've jumped a little bit further ahead than I should have. And he's signed for Borussia Dortmund on loan for the next season. That's what's happened. They didn't loan him out straight away. But he only made 11 appearances all year for them after signing for £56 million. A little bit off. And we will have a look now, and we'll see 2 seasons later how some of the wonder kids are getting on. Craig Davies, this is what he's looking like 2 years on from when we left. He is classed as a world-class goalkeeper now. He is a world-class goalkeeper now. Obviously came through our youth academy a long time ago. It was 2018, 2019 was our very first youth intake, and he's been a stand-in ever since. Spent 1 season in the under-18s, 1 season out on loan to Sunderland in the Championship, and then ever since then he's been the number 1, and he's doing absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure if he was in goal in the Champions League final, they would have won. Next up is Kotbra. He's just stupid, isn't he? Centre half. We signed him for a cheap sum, I believe, £2.2 million from Sparta Prague about 5 years ago, and he has developed into just a wonderful centre half. Eric Aubrey, we did have a quick look at that. He's not getting the game time you would expect of him, of someone of his quality now that they signed the centre half in the first season we left. Although actually he did play a lot of games last season, so maybe he's getting back into what you would expect him to be. Pavao. They're playing Pavao centre half. My Pavao. He was not a centre half when I had him. He was just purely a central midfielder. Is that the same Pavao? It is the same Pavao. What? I signed him as a Mezzala, bearing in mind about 5 seasons ago when he was 18. He's now comfortable as a centre half. Well, there we go then. He's okay. Todorovic was signed a long time ago as well. Maybe not a long time ago. Might have been just before we left, honestly. £1.8 million. Spent 3 seasons out on loan, and now he is in the first team squad, and he looks well rounded. Sandro Tonali, just a beast. Brent Beckiart looks like he's reached his potential now. This is probably as good as Brent is going to get, and he is a very, very talented central midfielder. Alexander Isaacs still at the club, playing on the attacking midfielder right in this selection. He's okay. I wouldn't be surprised if he left the club shortly. Cassio, we did sign, God, long time ago. Okay, never really saw him in our first team squad because we stopped playing attacking midfielders. Gonzalo Campos, the one player that I really regret that we didn't make work. He's back at the club. Obviously, with them playing wingers now, he's probably absolutely loving life. How did he get on last season? 8 goals and 6 assists with 3 player of the matches in 28 Premier League games. 23 starts, 5 from the bench. Lovely. There's his stats one more time. Mario Tomasek, Obviously, our emergency right back all those seasons ago now. Is he playing? He should be playing, at the very least. He is. He's getting game time. 25 starts last season in the Premier League. That's okay. Martin Watkins. Oh my God, Martin Watkins. Look at how he developed. What a genius. English, £16.5 million from Arsenal. He's beautiful. He's the sort of player who makes me want to continue playing. George Mendler, has he improved? He looks pretty much the same as when we signed him, to be honest with you. I signed him about 4 seasons ago now. £69 million. He's still banging in the goals when he starts. James Puerta's probably playing a lot more in his usual right wing position, I would assume. Is he actually getting game time? He is. He must be playing attacking midfielder right now. They're not playing wing backs. I'm a little bit disappointed. They've trained him to be a right back, completely a right back. I don't know what's going on with this AI, but I'm a little bit disappointed that they're not continuing with the sort of system I was playing. I think he would have been an absolutely fantastic right wing back. As soon as that became light green, his understanding of the role would have just shot through the roof. But, you know, they've changed the system. Musa Kessie, a left back, you'll never have seen me play. He's become very, very talented. Fabio Silva, still as good as ever. It looks like he's actually declined a little bit in his physicals, whether he's had an injury or not. Let's have a quick check. Anything absolutely major? 3-month torn calf muscle in December last year. So he has been out quite a lot, and he's probably lost a bit of his oomph. Michel Romain, he looked like a very talented English central midfielder. Still very talented. He still needs to improve those technicals if he's ever going to make the first team squad proper. We'll see how he gets on over the coming years. And the last one we'll check is Alberto Ilios. See how he's developed. He's okay. He's probably should be sold actually with Musa Kessie in the first team squad. Only started 15 games last. Where's Aaron Martin? Did I completely miss Aaron Martin? Have they sold him? So we move on to season 3 of the Premier League with West Ham since we left the club. And they haven't won the league again. They've come third this time. Manchester United win the league with 96 points. Absolutely dominated. But at least they're still getting in the Champions League. And let's see how they actually got on last season in the Champions League. So they did get through the group stage, it looks like. Did they get first knockout round? They got through quarterfinals. They got through beating Spurs in the quarters. Semis. They got through against Real Madrid. And they won the Champions League final against Man City. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Some names we don't recognise there. Scoring goals. So I'll take a look at that in just a second. Milinkovic-Savic put them in front. And then the names that we don't recognise equalised before George Mendler and Reece Nelson got the goals to get another Champions League victory. Yes, Aaron Martin left to go to Valencia on a free transfer. How are they letting players like that go on frees? I have no idea. He played the loaning him out to Napoli ever since we left. Obviously not playing that wing-back system must have really hurt Aaron Martin. He's still a talented player in my book, so losing him on a free, bit stupid. Another one on a free, Viriana, or however you spell his name. A decent young prospect he was. Never really made it at our club, but he's worth 54 million now after leaving on a free. Markovic left on a free. The AI just doesn't know how to make the most of their players. Even a player like this who's not really that good, they could have got a couple of million for. Floria, one of our talented right backs, who hasn't really developed as you would expect, but they still let him go on free to Benfica. Jake Lekowski was a talented English centre-half who they've let go on a free as well. In terms of paid outs, Alberto Ilios left to join PSG for £29 million. A talented left-back, but they did have better options there in Musa Kessie. German Chazaretta, who you'll never have seen play for me. He actually went to Juventus on loan a lot of the time whilst we were in charge. He's left to go to Roma for £19.5 million. He's now under transfer bid from Arsenal and Spurs as he's listed at Roma. Declan Rice left to go to Arsenal for £9.25 million. Another disappointing one. He's actually already signed for Newcastle the season after. As you can see, I'm in the 11th of July in the season after the season we're talking about. I completely messed up the holiday dates. But yeah, he left for Arsenal, made 17 appearances in the Premier League. Never really impressed. Edgar Perez left for £4.3 million. He's a really, really talented goalkeeper. And to see him leave for that low of a sum is a little bit surprising. And Padilla, he was a centre-half, was signed. He's okay. Left to join Stoke for £1.5 million. In terms of ins, they've signed Artur Aksyanov from Shakhtar for £36 million. He's a talented defensive midfielder who I will presume has come in to replace Declan Rice. He might even be better than Sandro Tonali in a few years' time, but we'll see how that pans out. Corrado Younes signed from Lazio for £42 million. Talented centre-half, an okay centre-half. I don't really understand this signing. I don't probably replace Markovic in the squad. I'm not even going to try his name. £50 million from Monaco. A decent attackman. 28. They've signed him for that much money. Did he play? He's played 21 games, 11 starts, 10 off the bench. Why? And finally, Okan Gunes for £63 million. Oh my God. Now that is the kind of signing you pay £63 million for. He is the guy who scored in the Champions League final. He is utter, unbelievable, fantastic. What a signing. So, missed out in the Premier League again. Won the Champions League. We'll move on. So, fourth season, West Ham still cannot win the Premier League without us. Come second this season, 4 points behind Manchester City. But how did they do in the Champions League? That is the all-important thing. They did... they got knocked out of the quarterfinals by PSG. In terms of transfers, any big outs? Alexander Isak left to go to Man City for £59 million. Pavao left to go, who they trained at centre-half for whatever reason, left for Wolfsburg, went for £21.5 million. Jonathan Faber for £6.75 million, a talented goalkeeper. He's left to go to whatever the club that is. Any interest in frees this year? Doesn't look like they've let too many players go on frees who were in the first team squad at the very least. In terms of incomings, who have they signed this season? Tom Stewart from Aberdeen. Why? Just why? He's okay, don't get me wrong, but technically he's awful. Sergio Antunes from PSV for £32 million. Again, why are you letting Jonathan Faber go if you're just going to sign this guy? No idea why. 6.75 million for Faber, £32 million for him. Crazy. And then Frank Wong from FC Colin for £59 million. You don't need him. You signed that Unez or whatever his name was last season. Why are you signing this guy? Like they've got this guy. You know, why are you spending £59 million on Frank Wong when you've got him? No idea. The AI is honestly baffling. I want to actually see who's been in charge in terms of managers over the time since we have left. So Zinedine Zidane came and took over for us for about 2 years, then he left, and Pep Guardiola's been in ever since. So we'll move on to the final season. We'll see the transfers where West Ham have finished, and then we'll have a look at some of the players and see how they've developed 5 years later. So 5 years later, and West Ham finally win the Premier League without us managing them. They came top with 97 points. Absolutely fantastic stuff. In terms of player attributes, George Mendler, Robbie De Smet doing well in terms of average rating. Sandro Tonali getting 12 assists. Craig Davies keeping the most clean sheets. Let's go have a look at the transfers. Before the transfers, actually, we'll see how they got on in the Champions League. Got through the group stage. First knockout round, they made it through. Quarterfinals, they made it through. Semis, they made it through. Then final, they beat PSG in the final 1-0. Fabio Silva getting them another goal and another Champions League title. It looks like they're still playing the 4-5-1 system. They actually changed the 4-5-1 system, playing the attacking midfielder rather than the defensive midfielder. Probably something to switch between, I would imagine. But dominated PSG in this final. And is that 3 out of 5 seasons? Or maybe even 4 out of 5 seasons they've won the Champions League since we left? We must have just been terrible. Oh, a very quiet last transfer window in terms of incomings. Absolutely nobody coming in. They did sell Bill Pearce, who they signed in the first season after we left, for £60 million to Man City. A decent English left winger. Nothing more than that. £46 million for Brent Beckiart. Why are you selling Brent? What a fantastic player he was for us. Never really got a start for Man City ever since he signed for them for £46 million. But yeah, I loved Brent Beckiart and he's left. Darrell Donaldson, did we sign? No, we didn't sign him. I think they signed him in the first season for like £20 million from Celtic. And now he's signed for Schalke for 25, so fantastic. Mitchell Romain, they didn't manage to develop, and look, he's pretty much the same as when we looked at him a few seasons ago. He could be a very, very talented player. He's on 115 grand a week at Brentford, worth 19 million now, so yeah. But we'll take one final look at the young players who we want to see and how they've developed over 5 years. Craig Davies, this is him. This is the final, probably finished article now for Craig Davies, 26 years old now. And he's unbelievable. What a player to get through your first youth intake during a Sir Alex Ferguson challenge. Absolutely unbelievable. world-class goalkeeper, physically well-rounded, mentally spot on, technically brilliant. Just a brilliant, brilliant player. Probably my favourite player of the save. Mario Tomasek is still at the club. Fantastic. Elite fullback. Obviously, he's the first choice right back now. And if I was playing that sort of system, I would play him first choice as well. Obviously, in our final season, James Puerta was the first choice right wing back. But Tomasek has now made his name at West Ham. Robbie De Smet, we're not going to cover. Copra, one of our fantastic centre-halves in the final season. Still absolutely brilliant. Still only 25 years old. Mentally, you know, determination 6, aggression 8. Some people will be turned off by that, but he was fantastic for us. And he's still playing right now. Musa Kessie, another one who you never ever saw, but he has become a very well-rounded left-back after we signed him for an incredibly cheap fee, £275,000 from ASEC. Brilliant stuff. Martin Watkins, probably the best player in the team, hands down, in my opinion, based on attributes. Mentally, just world-class. Physically world-class. Technically brilliant. What a guy. £16.5 million from Arsenal, of all teams. And he was in our starting 11 ever since, and he's done absolutely fantastically, particularly for the EI, to be honest with you. He had a few injuries for us. Sandro Tonali is still at the club, 30 years old now. He's been at West Ham ever since we signed him in our second or third season in charge, and he's just been a mainstay in the side. One season where he only made 19 appearances, probably an injury or so to talk about there, but we'll move on to James Puerta, who's still in the first 11, absolutely fantastic, and he's just brilliant. He was a brilliant right wing back. His tacklings went down from 10 to 9. So yeah, he's obviously not using those skills anymore. But brilliant player. I loved him while he was playing for me. Gonzalo Campos is still there. I'm very surprised he's still there. I thought he might have been disillusioned with his time at West Ham after I just loaned him out and never wanted to sell him because he was that good, but could never start him because he didn't fit the style we played. But he's incredibly well rounded. Fabio Silva's still at the club. His physicals haven't quite recovered since his injury, but he's still fantastic. And he's still bagging in goals, as we saw in the Champions League final. Eric Aubrey mustn't be getting the game time these days. 22 starts in the Premier League, so maybe he is. To me, is he the better centre-half than Copra? Maybe. George Menler, still at West Ham. 25 appearances this season in the Premier League, 11 goals. He's better than Fabio Silva for me. And that's it, pretty much. Lucas Two starts, still at the club, actually. We never mentioned him once. He's been on loan at Wolves for this season. He's been on loan at Chelsea for the past 2 seasons. So ever since we left, he's never really held down a first-team spot. I'm guessing they changed to the 4-5-1 attacking formation at that point. We'll have a look at just a random Premier League game to see what they were playing. Manchester United here when they beat them 1-0. But yeah, they were playing what all the AR managers play. 2 deep central midfielders and then the attacking wingers and attacking midfielder. So Lucas Toussaint found his game time limited and he's been on loan for the past 3 seasons. Well, that's going to be it from me. 5 years on at West Ham. Very impressive in Europe where we struggled, but not very good domestically where we excelled, particularly towards the end of our reign. It's lovely to see some of these like Craig Davies and Martin Watkins, Tomasek, James Puerta, to see how they've rounded out towards the end of their careers. Just fantastic stuff. I love seeing stuff like this. And listen, if you want to see another 5 years on, let us know. But if not, this seems like a fitting end to the Sir Alex Ferguson challenge. If you have enjoyed today's video, please consider leaving a like. And if you enjoy my content, get yourself subscribed. But until next time, take it easy.